My name is Michael Gelniak, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for the One-to-One Institute. I've been a teacher, director of a one-to-one program, county education consultant for new teacher development, gifted and talented in fine arts, and was a teacher in the system for 10 years and had a number of roles there, and administrative roles and curriculum roles. One-to-One Institute is a national nonprofit dedicated to transforming education by personalizing learning through universal access to technology. So One-to-One Institute works with schools, districts, states, and even some countries now to help guide the transformation of education systems. We have a comprehensive systems kind of approach that addresses 7 categories of systems that we find within these structures, including leadership, technology and infrastructure, finance, communications, curriculum and instruction, professional development, and assessment and evaluation. Inquiry provides opportunities for students to think more deeply about important content. That would be sort of the big picture ideas that are embedded within state standards. It's a guided form of questioning that can ignite student questioning and ignite sort of a process of student exploration and ownership. One-to-One Institute's model of inquiry is really the foundation for a pedagogical shift that we think is essential to reaching the academic improvement gains that everybody seems to be seeking. It's also something that is embedded throughout the Project RED research in our findings. So if you want to get to potentially 2 times student learning, we don't believe that it can happen without this kind of shift in the classroom. These inquiry concepts are really not new to learning. They've been around for thousands of years. But unfortunately, they seem to be absent or maybe at best they're underutilized in most classrooms. The components of our model include questioning, researching, discussing, creating, and reflecting. Most people think of that as a sort of a chronological process or a linear process. It's actually an iterative process, which means that students and the teacher can enter at any point in any one of these components. And then the order in which a person proceeds through the process can also vary. So for example, a classroom discussion can lead to a question, which can cause reflection and then deeper research. Or a teacher may pose an overarching question, something based on the state standards, which then leads to good student questioning because of the way the teacher is posing that open-ended kind of question, which the students then can research independently and then discuss as a group, and then create products and then present those products and then go back and reevaluate their findings or their processes or their products, and then and kind of go through the whole iterative process again. The order of those components is much less important, I think, than the students working through each one of the components in an order that makes the most sense in the context that they're working. We feel inquiry is an important component of an overall learning experience in the classroom. The process really fosters intellectual rigor and builds a depth of understanding of content that we don't see students getting through a traditional lecture or practice pedagogy. And unfortunately, that seems to be the prevalent pedagogy that's used in America's schools. Direct instruction is important, but it is most effective if it's provided when the individual learner needs it, and it's important to that individual learner's work. There's a 3,000-year-old saying that says, "No man can be rightly taught until he feels a real need in his life and in his work." And it's sort of a mantra that I've taken as a classroom teacher and helped other teachers to really build into the way they deliver instruction. So you can provide direct instruction at the beginning of a lesson, but if the student has no schema, no context in their brain already developed to accept that content, it really has no meaning for them, and therefore, it doesn't get stored into long-term memory. So I think it's important for them to really develop their questions and then need that content in order to be able to do the work that they want to do around that learning. So we use inquiry as a foundation for a one-to-one program that I developed several years ago called the Armada Middle Academy of Arts and Sciences. So I'm going from my own experience that I had with that process and the ownership that we saw developed. So what we witnessed actually was really interesting. At first, the students struggled with developing good questions, with knowing how to really dig deep on a question and those kinds of things. They kept asking the teachers, so, what's the right answer? How many pages does this report need to be? How do I know if it's right or wrong? What's it supposed to look like? And so on. And they wanted kind of that step-by-step spoon-fed process and outcome that they were so used to in their schooling. So the inquiry process was really forcing them to think on their own for the first time, or really think more deeply than they had before in school. And then to be able to support their thinking and to be able to demonstrate their understanding, which was incredibly hard work, or is incredibly hard work. Much harder than they had to work just to memorize information and be able to spew it back, or to understand a simple mathematical process, for example, and be able to do those problems on a test. So they really had to be able to think critically and deeply about the content. So the outcome, however, was that by the second semester, we really saw a shift, and the students were excited to come to school every day because they wanted to work on their ideas. So they had formulated experiments and projects and products that they were creating, and they were really excited to get to school to work on those ideas. They were excited to show their new understandings, things that they had stumbled on in their investigations and so on, and share those with their classmates and share those with the teacher. So there was an excitement in the classroom that I had never witnessed before. And then we also saw that they were spending an unbelievable amount of time outside of the school day, really grappling with their ideas, and then coming to school and having vigorous debates with their teammates or their classmates and with the teacher even. And it was all really high-level conversation, deep conversation around the content. And again, that's something that I had never witnessed in school before, that level of engagement. It was exciting. We had several visitors to the environment, and the first question that most people usually ask is, "Where's the teacher?" and then they would be encouraged to go talk to the students, and every single one of the students could explain what content they were grappling with, why they were grappling with it, how they were individually creating meaning for themselves around that content by showing their understandings in their projects and so on. So just a tremendous level of engagement and understanding. So many people, when I show them, we have a video of the Armada Middle Academy, and when I talk about the work that we did there, people invariably ask, who are these kids? Was it a gifted and talented program? Were they selected, and so on? So it was a choice program. In Michigan, we have open enrollment and free choice from district to district. So it was a program that the Armada School District had created. Armada is in a very rural community, a farming community, small farming community. And they were looking to create something that would be really vigorous, intellectually vigorous for their own population, but understanding too that surrounding populations, surrounding school districts could also take advantage of this. So we had actually tremendous interest in it, and we had to do just a general lottery around the selection of the students. So it was a random selection. And the only students that we were allowed to exclude because of the choice law in the state were students that had been expelled from a district or had some criminal activity that they were convicted of. So we really had the full gamut of students, from students that really were struggling on state assessments in past years to students that were high flyers. It was pretty much the bell curve. And what we found was in the first year, again, you know, they had struggled with the process at first. The testing was about level with where they had tested the year before. By the second year, those same students had all tested in the meets or exceeds categories of the Michigan State testing. And by the third year, all but one student had entered the high achieving category of the state testing. And the one student just missed it by a few points. So we were really curious why we thought the students were doing so well. And we didn't do any kind of test prep. So the teachers were not doing you know, any very specific MEP preparations before the testing, you know, the format or test questions and so on. So we're like, how are these students really achieving at such high levels? And when we talked to the students, what they said was really fascinating. They said, the test is so easy because they give you all the answers. They give you all the answers. So if you think about the way a standardized test is usually written, it's multiple choice. All the answers are there on the page. You just have to pick the best one, or you have to pick the correct one in most cases. So for our students, they had been used to really grappling deeply with the content. It seemed so simple for them to just simply pick out which was the best answer.